What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you the update that you have been waiting for, and that is Dark Worlds, involving unfortunately the very costly Fiendsmiths. Now obviously this is to make the deck as competitive as possible, and one of the big hurdles that this deck will face going forward is the fact that Droll will now be a definite staple side deck, if not a main deck option, so you still need to be able to learn to play around that, while also utilising the brand new cards in the form of the Fiendsmiths. So with this particular profile, I'm going to show you what we're going to be playing, how we're going to be utilising the Fiendsmiths, and just what it adds to the deck. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Diving headfirst into the profile, let's start off with the rinse and repeat standard Dark World lineup. So of course we do play triple Genta, triple Snow, and of course triple Rainbow, backed up by double Greffa. Now this is a hybrid of my future build that I did a few months ago when Fiendsmith was first announced, and of course my most recent build involving, and I'm just going to skip to it now, the Visago the Destroyer. Now this is actually going to be even more important now because we are going to use and abuse, and probably the most important card for the Fiendsmith engine in this deck is going to be your Sequence. Now arguably you could play this at multiples if you wanted to, but it does specifically require Light Fiends, and unfortunately these are all Dark Fiends. But the idea is it lets you spin the fusion materials back from the graveyard into the deck, which means you can utilize something like Visago, you can utilize Greffa, you can even utilize any of your other Dark monsters to get you into your Greffa fusion, or if you're going second, you can get you into your Rainbow in order, or your colorless, in order to nuke the entire board. So this lineup would be pretty standard in my opinion, and then we're following it up with one Silver, one Ceruli, and specifically for this version we are playing the one Lucian, just because getting that level 6 to the board is more important with the Fiendsmiths. It means you don't need to rely on some of the Fiendsmiths as early, and what I mean by that is if you're able to get Lucian to your board and then you just get your Fiendsmith to it before you use its graveyard recursion or anything like that, it gives you the ability to make your Triple D high Wave King. That then gives you protection from the Beeroo going forward, but then it can also lead you into stuff like Beatrice as well. And when you're going into the Beatrice line, the idea is that you're going to want to be sending something specific from the deck to the graveyard in order to gain advantage. The best thing about being able to utilize a card like Beatrice is it will allow you to send an accession from the deck to the graveyard, which straight away means if you've got a danger in the hand, a Dark World in the hand, you can trigger the accession effect to get it back to your hand and discard a card. So that can then of course trigger off all of your Dark Worlds, and then on top of that it then gives you the ability to get you into your fusion monster as well. So Beatrice can be massively useful, and then of course if you want to go down the meta boring route, your Beatrice can then start using the ability to send all of your side deck cards. So when you're looking at stuff like Rise to Full Heights to deal with the Tempire matchup, you can send Anti-Spell Fragrance or D-Barrier and then reset it with the Nightmare Griffin just for standard degenerate plays. And then of course you do have the ability to Gimmick Puppet Lock like everyone else is going to be doing with this version, but honestly I think Beatrice is up for the ban list, which is why I'm not really going to be focused on it too much. Then for the danger lineup, I've kept it relatively straightforward. So we've got double Nessie, then of course we do have the one Jackalope, followed up by one Chupacabra, one Bigfoot, and one Mothman. Now arguably Mothman can be at 2 if you wanted to, but I didn't want the reliance to be on this engine so much. You're just kind of there to get utilization for everything you might need. So obviously Mothman gives you the benefit of whether it successfully resolves or doesn't, you're going to get the ability to trigger off a Dark World. Bigfoot is solely focused for going second. Chupacabra is solely focused by the time you've got a danger in the graveyard already, so these two are very easily sacrificed for a second Mothman and a third Nessie if you want to. Nessie of course would then allow you to search out any of your other dangers, and then Jackalope will allow you to summon any of your other dangers, which is where you get the benefit of the Chupacabra and the Bigfoot, because it gives you a level 8 for rank 8 plays or a level 4 for rank 4 plays if you want to. Then of course the most important normal summon of the entire deck is of course still going to be your Kokimiru Guardian. I said this before, this is definitely my preferred normal summon of the entire deck. Yes, of course a lot of people like to play Ken and Gen and other cards like that, but honestly of all the cards you could probably normal summon in the deck, this is the best one for you. Because going second, you normal summon it, it gives you a way to deal with some of your opponent's interactions. If they try to SP any of your cards, if they try to Appaloosa any of your cards, you just Kokimiru, tribute it off, and then you're going to be in a bit of a benefit for you. And then going first, you summon this, it's one of the only cards that you can normal summon, and then it will just out and out deal with a Droll and Lockbird. So you normal summon this, then you activate your first search, whether it be discard the Fiendsmith, or technically Fiendsmith Engraver, or whether that just be activate a Genta. It means if they try to Ash you, you can Kokimiru it. If you resolve that and then they try and Droll you, you Kokimiru it. It really does put you in a very good position in order to kind of deal with what your opponent might throw at you, especially like I said with Droll, highly expected to be a mainstay staple in the side deck, if not at all the main deck as well. Unfortunately, it doesn't help you protect against Shifter unless they leave it so late. And what I mean by that is if you go draw phase, standby phase, main phase, normal summon Quocking Mirror Guardian, they go Shifter, then of course you can negate the Shifter. But more times than not, your opponent will probably go draw phase, drop Shifter, so then they're not in Talent's territory. Then onto the Fiendsmith engine. So of course you are going to be playing 3 Engraver. Unfortunately, I'm still using proxies. I'm waiting for my Engravers to actually turn up. But the idea is I feel that this is the only version of the deck where you could technically play a little bit less of this if you wanted to, because I feel the best card for this particular deck is going to be your Tractus. So I am going to be playing 3 Tractus. Again, I don't have my third one to turn up as of yet. But the idea behind Tractus, what I really like about it, is you add a light Fiend monster, which can either be your Fiendsmith or of course it will be your Fabled Lorry. But then you get to discard any card. Now it discards as effect, so it will trigger your dangers, and of course it will of course trigger your dark worlds. But the idea is that off of Tractus, more times than not, in the other versions of this deck, they'll go Tractus, search out Lorry. Whereas in this one, we actually don't mind going Tractus, search out Engraver, and then discard a Dark World, because then we'll get advantage off the back of that. We can discard the first Fiendsmith to get us a second Tractor, so we've got a follow-up for the next turn. You could even play other Fiendsmith cards if you wanted to, like the Quick Play. But the idea is that I feel Tractus is probably more important for the Dark World version than the Fiendsmith Engraver itself. So that's where I could arguably see myself putting Fiendsmith down if I really needed to. Like if you were lucky enough at your locals to pick up Tractus, and you were like, you know what, I can either pay £70 to £90 to get a second or third Engraver, or I could pay £25 and get a third Tractus and still be able to play this deck with 3 Tractors and 1 Fiendsmith, because I'm going to be able to recycle both this and the Lorry. I'd probably advise you to go down that route instead, because then you're going to save yourself a good 140 to, if not 200 quid, which is crazy good savings. And then carrying on to the rest of the spells, I am still on the 2 Gates of Dark World, the 1 Card Destruction, the 1 Accession, 1 Corridor, 1 Archives, and then of course my favourite spell for this entire deck is Talents and Thrust, just because giving my opponent a Ceruli and then technically putting them in a position where Thrust and Talents is already live really does mess with them, and that's really kind of cool because a lot of people don't expect this. Sometimes I use Talents to draw me cards, sometimes I use Talents to look at my opponent's hand. Your first go-to option off of Thrust will be the Talents, but if you've already got it, your next option can be the Corridor, and then that's when your side deck can come into play as well, because you can actually start going for the Eradicator Virus, any of your viruses really, that can be massively helpful in certain matchups. You can also go directly for stuff like D-barriers, you can go directly for stuff that will be most effective against your opponent. Like I said before, Rise at Full Heights, you would have either sent with Beatrice or you can set off a Thrust. You've got stuff like the one-turn Gozen match. I'm trying to remember what it was called. I think it's like, it was a trap card that basically when you flip it, for that turn only, players can only control 1 attribute each, and then it sends them sends the rest to the graveyard. So it's like a 1-turn Gozen, which I think is kind of cool. If anyone knows the exact name of that, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll try and find it and Google it after this. I've got a playset of them somewhere. I just haven't used it for ages, so I can't remember it off the top of my head. But that's it pretty much for the main deck. I believe it's a flat on 40. It's kind of all you really need. You can change it up if you want to. The idea behind this version is to show you what the Fiendsmith will add to the deck, and the idea is it's mainly the Tractus that's going to give you the most advantage in this particular version. Moving on to the extra deck, so we'll go through the standard fusions. We've got 2 of the Grepher Dragon Overlord of the Dark World and 1 colourless. So you'll see this is applicable because we do use the Visago, and the idea is I've got a go first option, I've got a go second option, so I've got a nice balance between the 2. And the reason I've gone with 2 Greffers is because I can either make the first Grepher off of something like the Sequence, but then I also have the ability to make a second off of the back of the Accession as well. So it's kind of nice to have 2 of them, just because if you might want a protected comeback, and then of course you still obviously have the Accession as well. So technically you can get both of these in 1 turn, even though you should be able to win if you resolve colourless, but if you don't win off of the back of resolving it, you then still have the ability to get you a Grepher Dragon, which can then protect everything else going forward. Speaking of Link monsters, of course, we've got the Sequence. I'll take you through the Fiendsmith Link monsters just because it's pretty standard on that one. And then a 1 Requiem, so not much changes on that one. Of course, you've got the 1 Akashic. I still like this to be able to bounce my opponent's card and then bounce the danger that it points to. So bounce the Ceruli back to my hand, bounce the danger that it points to, and then just go again. You've got your SP Little Knight, pretty standard on that one, followed up by Moon of the Closed Heavens, common emergency ban list after this format, after this 2 weeks of a format, quite possibly. And then of course for the other Link monsters to finish this up, you've got the Muckraker. This is going to be able to, yes it does Fiend Lock you, but that's not the end of the world. You get to recycle everything and start again. Then of course you've got the Underworld Goddess. I still really rate this card as the ability of being able to go second and then be able to go Moon of the Closed World. Not only can I target one of my opponent's monsters, but then I can also get rid of the other card, which could be a Towers, to go into an Underworld Goddess. And I think being able to utilize both of these, considering even if you go into this to start off your Fiendsmith combo, you can then recycle it anyway. So you've got a go first option and a go second option with this one particular card here, which is mental. And then the final Link mod set, of course, is Appaloosa, followed up by 2 XYZs in the form of the Daguerre's the Timeless, the one DDD Wave Hiking Caesar, which can very easily be Beatrice if you want to go down that route instead. And then the last 2 fusions that we play is the one Lacrima. I really like it that it was called the Lacrimosa previously, but Lacrima is what it is. You've got a time con now, so Dark Worlds can take a while to actually get going, and if your opponent doesn't scoop to you, you now actually have a time con option, which is kind of useful. And then of course we've got the one Princess, because the Princess will actually make Tractus be a 1-card combo. So for those of you unfamiliar with this, the idea is that your Tractus would search out your Lurry, you discard the Lurry, you summon the Lurry back, you then turn your Lurry into the Requiem, tribute off the Requiem, get the Engraver into rotation, use Requiem's effect in the graveyard to equip to the Engraver, and then you fuse the Engraver with the equipped Requiem, which fills up both requirements for the Princess to summon the Princess out. And then what that gives you the ability for is you can spin back your Requiem or your Lurry, summon back your Engraver, and then you overlay both of those into the rank 6, or you can overlay both of those into the Link 2, and it basically just gives you a bit more consistency to get everything going, especially when in this version the Tractus is a better starter for you than the Fiendsmith, in my opinion, because of this version. Because it's one of the ones where it's like, okay, well, if I've opened up a Dark World with that hand as well, I'm adding a Dark World to the board, or I'm adding a Dark World search effect to everything I'm doing off of the back of the Tractus. And that's pretty much it for the profile. I hope this has given you a couple of ideas in your own build. Like, obviously, there was one way that this was being built prior to this, and then we obviously get the TCG exclusives. You could do, if you want an additional Foolish Berry, you could play the other TCG exclusive, which is the level 6 fusion monster. But honestly, I don't think you need to. And the extra deck doesn't have the biggest amount of space available to you, but it still has enough to flex it around should you need to and change it up. But I really do like what this deck can do now. Yes, of course, Fiendsmith will be everywhere. Yes, you do need to be very careful because of Draw and Lockbird. But the idea is that Dark Worlds did get a positive boost from the most recent set. So of course I'm going to show that off to you all so that if you do want to be building this deck, or if you are on the meta side of everything and you have decided to pick up the Fiendsmith because you want to play Snake Eyes Fiendsmith and you're looking for an option of what happens when that gets hit, if you're playing Yugioh and you're like, you know what, I want to change it up and go with Dark World, or like me, like I said, I like loads of dark decks, which is why I play stuff like Yugiohs, Dark Magician, and then Dark Worlds. Pretty sure there's a theme with that going through it, like dark fiends and dark spellcasters and dark in the name. But the idea is that you then have the ability to interchange that Fiendsmith engine to go into any of your decks, which will always give it a nice little benefit. I feel that after the first week of info being out, everyone's going to be sick of the amount of Fiendsmith decks. There'll be a lot of this deck with Fiendsmith, this deck with Fiendsmith, and it will get very boring, which is why I want to show you these early. That will be the last one that I'll do of them, unless there is a massive change in the strategy or the playstyle. This will give you a template or a demo to work off the back of, and then you'll be able to adapt it to your own personal fit, and then kind of work it from there. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this. Hope it's given you some ideas. If you do have any questions, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. But for now, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.